Hello, hello, dear Kardec radio listeners. Here we are again, another beautiful night, uh, together, studying, learning, learning about so many important things, right, that we're discussing in our Illuminated Prayers, and that's the name of the series of conversations that we're having, discussing many books by Andrea Luiz through the Chico Xavier, and going through many of these blessing prayers that we have in all these books and learning from them so much. Right? There's so much for us to learn. Hello, Carol and Betsy. Hola, everybody. So nice to see you, my friends, again with us one more time, learning together, right? Practicing what Jesus explained us so many years ago, right? How can we learn together? How can we discuss? And how can we be better, right? Together. Isn't that great? We have a chance of doing that. Dear friends, so happy to be with you guys. For all of you out there that are connected with us, and today we're going to continue in this beautiful book by Andrea Luiz. And I have to say you something. This is the book that really transformed me. I remember the very first time I read Liberation by, that's the book we're talking about today. Um, I was still in the moment within Spiritism, let's put it that way, that I had so many questions. I had with my own scientifically trained mind. I had a very hard time sometimes. Hello, sunshine. Nice to see you again. I still had a very difficult time understanding some concepts, and I really wanted more information. I always wanted more. I had so many burning questions that I had that I had to address, right? And I remember by this time when I first read Liberation many years ago, I had already read all the basic books of Kardec, read many, many other books. But then when I got to this one, it really changed something on me. And I can tell you why now. After many years, I can actually tell you why. And the reality is the reason why that happened, because this book, as though it's a journey on a mission to help one spirit, right? Or, in other words, a group of spirits, but primarily the rescue mission for Gregorio, which is spirit, which is, um, as we all know from introduction from Carol, a spirit that's obviously lacking a lot of love at that particular time and moment in its experience. It is a mission that the book describes as mission, but at the same time, the book actually talks about us, because the book actually shows us what are we doing, what are we thinking, and what are the consequences. And it addresses so many critical points in Spiritism in a brilliant way, because it discusses a lot about what exactly happens in spiritual cities. Or we know a lot about Solar and many other cities that are close to surface of Earth, but um, obviously in another vibrational level compared to us. But we didn't know too much about the organization of places where the vibration energy was actually lower than us. You know, what happened when so many spirits full of guilt and remorse are living together in such an organization that is now that is led by spirits that sometimes described as evil spirits, or what I like to say, like ignorant spirits that are lacking love at that moment, right? So, so what happens there, right? Because that was one of the questions I have while we're talking about all these things. But what about, you know, what happens in the other side? And then many other questions that this book will discuss. The intricate relationship between the obsessor spirits and our own minds, our responsibilities, how many times we're the one that's bringing them, we're the ones that are actually igniting the cycle, which in a way, like, who's really the obsessor, right? In many cases, we are ourselves initiators of a process that we're now receiving the direct consequences of it, right? And every time I remember before talking about obsessions and obsessor spirits, I still at that time had a very narrow-minded idea about what obsession is. And this book helped me a lot because it gave me at least a very different perspective, broadened my ability of understanding this relationship between us, our thoughts, and the surrounding, right? And questioning like what is the really concept of an obsessor spirits, if maybe we're the ones that are actually bringing them close and initiating the cycle that is happening anyway. So it's a lot of many questions. So talks about evolution of this perispiritual body, right? Either when you're really evolved or you're not, right? So what happens with the spiritual bodies? It talks about our own process of spiritual evolution, kind of backing up then what's going to come later on in the sequence of books in Evolution to World. So it gave me a nice like a prerequisite course, right? So when you're in university, like you need credit A, B, and C to get to credit D. So that's kind of how I felt when I first read it. Anyways, now the book primarily focuses on consequences. Hi, Teresa. Yeah, nice to see you all guys here. That's amazing, right? Very nice to see all of you. The book really focuses on the title is liberation, but the focus is on consequences, right? Action and reaction, right? So that's what I know. This is a different book, but this book gives us a prime on detailed, perfect descriptions, right? And for example, when Andrea Louise is going through the dark realms, we're not only it's not only described as like a dark place or something like generic as you see in other descriptions. Now it's going to describe the smell, the texture, the pattern, the colors, the feelings that are associated with it, right? It is a really incredible picture that Andrea Luis gives to us during his own journey of learning, right? And just as a brief reminder here, remember that this book, particularly now the chapter we're talking about, chapter 18, talks about Gubbio, Andrea Louise, and Eloy, all of them together, partnering together in a mission to help the spirit of Gregorio, who that's all under the guidance of a highly evolved spirit called Matilde. And Matilde is actually Gregorio's mother. And that's the story. Now, another thing that I've learned a lot about this book, again, is give us yet another complex understanding of families, right? Relationships in a spiritual family, or incarnated families, and sometimes thousands and thousands of years that are going around and around for us to re-encounter ourselves with members of our families, right? And how that rescue, that meeting is probably one of the most amazing descriptions of this spiritual awakening, right? For Gregorio. Hello, John. Nice to see you here. Thank you for joining us one more time. Okay. So again, when Matilde encounters and starts, the process of talking to Gregorio, again, that is probably one of the most incredible moments I remember reading in all of this spiritist literature. Okay. And during that process, they're also rescuing Margarida. Margarida is Gregorio's daughter, who is also undergoing a very, very severe type of obsession. And she's under a very significant influence of the spiritual world. And they're going to help her to part of the process, right? Give us also a very interesting view on how these rescues are complex, right? Because they involve several pieces on this puzzle, right? If you think about it, Understanding that, this is now what we already know from the works of Allan Kardec, the layers and understanding the complexity of familial relationships from the spiritual family and our own perspective here incarnated, how the stories are interconnected, right? And how they're complex. Because you know, remember Jesus said that very clearly too, but that's, we can do another study on that. But what happens is our relationships between friends and family and the spirits that are incarnating around the same time and have connections here, they go back many, many thousands of years, sometimes in multiple incarnations, and the roles are always interchanging. Not necessarily I come the same way, same relationship I had before. So that generates a very, very complex map or network of connections that, in books, for example, like Liberation, Andrea Louise will go through each one of those steps and reconnect those dots, allowing a rescue, the picture of the rescue to really occur, right? Because you cannot really unlock the mysteries of the mind of the spirit. You cannot unlock the very, very dark and sealed places that we generate inside our minds if you don't go through this complex network of relationships, right? So, my dear friends, that is a very, very brief um, summary of the book Liberation. And again, I highly recommend this book. Was one of the books that really made me rethink a lot about, and not only spirituals per se, but also consequences and what are we doing and what happens, right, when with many, many examples like the book's going to give to us. I'm not going to give you too much in the book, okay? So we already know that Gregorio, that's the idea. Gregorio is going to be rescued at some point in the book, and that's beautiful. But the nice part here is that how does that happen? And again, I really advise you guys, if you have a chance, right? Let's go through this and read this book, Liberation. Okay? So now we're going to jump into chapter number 18. And today we're going to study the prayer as we're doing every night. But also after studying the prayer, I'm going to do a little exercise with you guys, right? And I hope you guys are going to enjoy it because it's not a coincidence, do not happen. But this chapter also contains an incredible communication by Matilde, which is an elevated spirit, a benefactor. And that's the title of the chapter, right? So words of a benefactor. So we're going to study the prayer, and then we're going to actually study the words of the benefactor, which are tied very nicely together. Okay? So if we go now directly to the prayer, so Gubbio, which is at that moment the mentor of that particular mission and meeting, he says something that I think is very important, and I'm going to read directly from the book here, okay? So Gubbio says, he told us to forget about our former wrongs. That's a preparation for the prayer, okay? Former wrongs, and he recommended that we foster an inner posture of sublimated hope, framed with renewed optimism, so that our noblest energies could be exteriorized during the prayer. Okay, so let's break that in little pieces. Okay, so we're now preparing ourselves for this moment of prayer that a benefactor will actually manifest herself to all the spirits. Okay, to everyone in that meeting. So the idea is that when you're concentrating your mind, right? So the recommendation is that foster an inner posture, so the inner thoughts, right? What you're really thinking at that moment of sublimated hope, okay? Framed or surrounded, right? Or bounded by renewal optimism. So hope and optimism, right? So let's think positively, right? So that's what he's saying. So we can allow, by that little container, that package, we allow our noble energies to be exteriorized. And what's going to happen with those energies? Well, those energies will be used during the manifestation of that spirit. And that is very similar to what happens in spiritual centers, that happens in your home when you're doing the gospel at home, right? That's exactly what we're doing. Doing the gospel at home, don't we do it like every week or day, depending on how the schedule we implement, but we set up a time and a moment where we all together disconnect our minds as much as possible from all the noise in the background of our minds, right? Not noise, physical noise, noise in our minds, like the energies that are disruptive to our thoughts. We sit down together and we put out our best possible energies into moments of prayer and reading. So the reading is helpful because help us focus, right? Singing is helpful, help us focus. So all meditation is helpful, help us focus. So all those things will be helpful and will allow us to exteriorize um, our highest or noblest energies. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So just to show you one more time, what happens there also happens here, and that's how we learn, right? So now with Gubia's words in mind, let's go to the prayer. Okay, my friends? So let's do that together. Okay? So I'm going to start reading the prayer. We're going to do a little breaks. Okay? So we can digest the message here, and you guys can ask questions at any time. We can have discussions at any time here. Okay? So here's how it starts. Lord Jesus, please bless us. Remember, we talked about this over and over, how prayers are structured in a way. There's there are the moments that you're asking, there are moments that you're thinking, the moments that you're praising, right? So that's a combination of things we see in a prayer. Okay. So Lord Jesus, please bless us, your disciples. They're thirsty for the living waters of the heavenly kingdom. Very nice organization of this idea here, because so we're disciples, right? Oh, but Marco, there were only 12 disciples that were there at that time, the spirits that were prepared for that. No, if we are, remember what Jesus said? If we are working by the example, so if we're doing what Jesus was actually doing, not that he needed, he was drawing the sand, but his actions are the manifestations of perfection of love. So if we're doing, or if we're trying to implement, putting the energy to implement those, so but automatically, right? I'm following that idea. So if I'm following the idea of love, basically if I'm implementing love in my life, I'm automatically a disciple of Jesus, right? Because he's the manifestation of that. All right, you guys follow that. So I am. And I'm thirsty, right? But not the tap water. I'm thirsty of the living water. So imagine this. Picture this, my friends. Picture this river of divine waters living. So they're alive. They're flowing. They have energy. They have momentum. Okay. So this flow, where is it coming from? It's coming from the above, right? I know above there's all references in the universe that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because above and below. But what it means above here means like from the morally, in the schedule of moral elevation, so it comes from the highest, coming from all the way from the creator, right? Because we are immersed in the creative thoughts of God. We're part of it, right? We're co-creators. We're working together, putting this engine to work. So we're connected. Okay. So this flow of living waters is constantly flowing through the universe. But I'm still thirsty. The reason why we don't drink from it, like we're actually shooting ourselves from it, right? That's what we're doing. Okay. We have this little umbrella, right? It's called ego, right? That's called selfishness, right? There's a little umbrella that I hold very tightly and protects me, or not really protects me, but prevents me from reaching the living waters of the heavenly, right? Now, so what they're saying here is that, well, help me so I can actually have a tiny little sip of it, right? Please help me do that, okay? So we're gathered here as willing learners, right? But truly willing. Oh, look, we're doing it. Hey, right, Carol? We're all here. We're learners. I'm a big learner, right? And as Matilde is going to give you the example in a minute, we're not better than anyone else. Quite contrary. Probably did a lot of things quite ugly and bad not too long ago. So I was giving the opportunity to say, Mark, what are you going to do now? You're going to read all these books and you're going to put it all together. You're going to help other people learn this too. And I take it, right? So no, I'm not. I'm probably, I need, a lot of help. I can tell you that. Okay? So we are the willing learners in hopes of your sanctifying determinations, right? So the laws of God that we're talking about. We know that you never hinder, you never prevent us from accessing the granaries, right, of the divine grace. And we also know that you're a light, Jesus. You're a light, like the sun, falls on both saint and sinner. This is so important, friends. And this is critical for us, independently of religion or beliefs or anything else, right? If we understand what fairness, so the law of justice is, right? And if we're all created the same, and we're all going through opportunities and experiences, and eventually we're all going to reach perfection. So the light or the energy, what you say, the divine energies from coming from above will reach all of us, because from the perspective of someone that's at Jesus level, we're all these tiny little kids, right? Learning. Okay. So we already learned a few things, right? When you're helping someone that needs your help, right? So you're learning, helping kids or anything like that. Right? We know already that you can't really treat people differently at that stage because you're not helping them, right? So you teach both of them independently of who did this or who did that, right? So you take that as a learning experience for everyone. So if we understand that concept, think about Jesus, right? See, that's how I like to think. If I'm understanding a concept and I'm here, this tiny little thing here, if you think from the above, then we're going to learn a lot more, right? Yes, correct, Rita. Look at that. We are all in synchrony, right? We're connected directly. So, yes, all, right? Know all of us, everything in the universe. Not only us, right? Everything in the universe. The tiny little speck of sand that's living somewhere, yes, it's all connected, right? To the material principle, universal cosmic fluid, and that's it. So we're all connected, correct. And of course, God knows all of us, really knows, right? Okay. So like a sun, the light from Jesus will fall on all of us, saint or sinner, so wrong or right. It doesn't matter what we do, what we've done, right? We're all bathed on by it, right? The just and the unjust. Even so, Lord, we have become atrophied because of our own carelessness, right? So what happens when you stop using, like, for example, you know, let's say if you're for some reason, uh, I don't want to say stop using your brain because that wouldn't make a lot of sense, but there's some people do something. But let's say if you stop using your arm, or using one arm more than the other arm or something like that, no, you start to notice differences, right? So the one you use more, you get hypertrophy, so you're going to get a big arm, you're going to be very strong, right? So you go to the gym, you train both arms at the same time, because if you train them separately, doesn't look good, right? You're going to look like one side is different from the other side. Okay, so now what Gubbio is saying here is that we've become as a whole atrophied, right? Because we're not using our talent. Remember the passage of the talents, right? Not using it, right? But Marco, I don't know how to do it. Like I don't have the skills. I can't help. I don't know how to. I don't know how to do this, right? Fine. We all have opportunities, right? There's a tiny little seed inside our minds, right? Remember that? We need to put water, then we need to expose it to the sun, we need to take care of it. So we need to put things on action. We need to make them move, right? We need to do it, right? But now, Marco, do I need to, remember we talked about this before. I don't need to do gigantic things to look good because God's going to see me for sure if I do something very, very, very big, right? But what we just talked about is so every little, tiny little step that you do in the right direction counts, right? Start little, start with goals that you can accomplish. That's the number one rule of success, not only in business, also in spiritism. Why not, right? So if you want to do, say, hey, I'm going to change, I'm going to start, and I'm going to change, right? So if you put your first goals, like I'm going to change, I'm going to do good, I'm going to be a great person, great. So the first thing I'm going to do is that tomorrow I'm going to stop thinking ill about it. Like that's it. I'm not going to think anything bad about anyone ever again. What's going to happen? Tomorrow, you're going to be depressed because you can't do it. Not in a day. Well, we'll do it, right? We'll do it. Maybe 5 days, maybe. I don't know. Maybe 5 incarnations, right? But we'll do it. But set goals that you can certainly accomplish, right? I'm going to change. And the first thing I'm going to do, right? Every night before I go to bed, I'll think about my day and I'll see what I did wrong and I'll make a change next day. I'll choose one and I'll say, now tomorrow I'm not going to do this again. So this is the last time I'm going to be, having to go through this again in my mind, right? So step one, try something that you can do, right? It's easy to do. Let's do that exercise, right? That's a good one, okay? So you don't become atrophied, right? How can you make your love grow? Have you thought about it? Right? Think about it. 5 seconds. By loving. Yeah, that's how I make it grow. Right? Otherwise, it's going to get atrophied. See, that's what good you're saying. Right? How can you make, right? So think about anything. So how can you make your sense of caring and helping grow? Right? Is it by thinking about it? No. Is it by doing it? Yes, then you make it grow. Then you start to leave the consequences of the good actions. Things change. You can open a bright, beautiful smile, but there's nothing better than actually doing something good for another person. It doesn't matter what. It's in the right direction. Okay? So let's not be atrophied or shrinking, right? Our hearts have become arid, dry, lifeless. That's what the word says. From selfishness and our feet frozen. In other words, I can't move because of indifference. And we talked about the same concept 2 nights ago. Okay? Not knowing what pathway to take. Yes, sometimes we spend so much time just like thinking of what to do that we actually don't do anything. Have you guys ever encountered that? Because that's who we are still, right? We're still doing those things. Okay. Oh, Master, more than the deafness that inflicts our ears, and the deafness here, oh, this is what we call selective deafness. You want an example of that? Got a 5-year-old. Tell them that it's time to clean up. And using the exact same tone of voice, exact same moment, and tell them that it's time to have dessert. Which one you think they're going to listen better and clearly, right? So when Jesus sends a message to us, it doesn't matter through which route it's going to get to us. The message comes, and the message is, Marco, stop it. That's bad. You gotta study, read, do it. Like, move on, right? So my ear miraculously is blocked. You can't hear it, right? So that's exactly what happens, and that's what we have to work. And that's what he's saying here, right? So master, more than the depths of 50 years, and more than the blindness that absorbed our sight, we suffer due to our own wretchedness. Why do we need to suffer, Marco? No, no, no one's created for suffering, right? Isn't God perfectly just, right? Remember that. But that is not. You don't create something that you know for sure that the pathway for that individual you created will be suffering. We decide to do it using our free will. That's the tool we have for evolution, and it can go both ways. So I can go this, or I can correct my path through the suffering that I create myself through my own wretchedness. That's what he's creating here. So continue on. So extreme petrification. So that turns into stone, right? That's what petrification means. In vanity and pride. So it solidifies, right? Which down through many centuries we have chosen to be our guides in the abyss and the darkness and death. Okay? So vanity and pride. Petrification, so solidifying inside us and being our guide. Okay? Look at our societies today, right? Think about it. So in many examples you can possibly going to find is that in many cases, vanity and pride are still the north. For example, defining success. So look at our society today. How do you define success in general? And I'm not thinking about individuals, or I'm not thinking about specific cases, but in general, you say success is the person that owns a home, has 2-car garage, live in the burbs, right? Go golfing every weekend or something like that, I don't know. So that's how society sees things in general, right? So none of those make any sense for real success, right? Success will be, are you happy? Is your family happy, right? Are we working to help others? Are we feeling that energy, right? Through my work, did I do the best I can always, right? For my neighbor, for the others, right? Obviously, do I have the my financial needs are covered? Great, right? We also work for that too, right? There's nothing wrong with that, okay? But success does not necessarily mean vanity things, right? And pride and other things, okay? So that's what they're saying here, okay? So let's continue on, right? Yet we trust him. We trust you, like this very nice word, like it's clear, right? We trust. Whose sanctifying influence always regenerates and saves, because that's exactly what he taught us, right? Powerful friend, you who use fiery lava to open the bosom of the earth, according to the will of Supreme Father, is referring to the creation of our planet. Remember the creation of our planet? Jesus was already here, sitting down and discussing what was going to happen with this planet, even before we even thought about the possibility as a spirit to incarnate here, right? Free our spirits from the old prisons of the self, even if it means our having to pass through the volcano of suffering. Do not relegate us to the abysses of the past. And this book, this is very important for this book, because in many cases here, the individuals that are living in the lower zones near the abysses that I described, they are lost or they're locked in the past. So they can't use their minds as a spirit for the now and future, right? So if you're locked in a cyclic idea from the past, that energy already is almost like you're being obsessed, right? It's almost like you're obsessed about that idea, that cyclic idea that doesn't go away, and that prevents you from using, your capacities to move forward, right? This is like, and I'll give another example here because I like to bring something that's more tangible, particularly if you're into technology, right? So if you have your computer running and one of the codes, one of the programs you're running goes into an endless loop, basically just keeps processing without finding an answer for that particular code, that's going to drain your battery, it's going to drain your processing power. You cannot do anything else with your computer. Your computer is going to be useless, right? Same thing happens in our minds, right? If all the energies that we have are taken over or hijacked by the errors of the past and the influences that can do in our minds, we can't really move forward. It's very hard to do it, right? It takes time. It takes a lot of will, courage, and we're going to talk about here, and also understanding who we are, right? So we can control that. We don't get rid of it, right? Getting rid of that will take action. So I have to go back and rectify what I've done. But before I go to that point, I need to move on mentally. Okay? All right. So let's keep going. Disclose our future and incline our souls to the atmosphere of goodness and self-denial, right? That's the goal. Within the deep night that we have created for ourselves, because we have abused your blessings, right? Because we have so many opportunities, dear friends. We ask, and we ask, and we ask, and we ask again, and then we ask just one more time, just because maybe Jesus didn't hear, right? And the opportunities come, and they come, and they come again, and they come one more time, right? And that's exactly what Gubi was saying here, right? We abuse the blessings that we receive, and we ask more, and then we abuse it, and we ask more, right? We have only, and it continues, we have only the flickering, so it's like turn it on and off, right? The flickering lantern of goodwill. But the winds of our passions may blow it out at any moment. This is a perfect image, right? We are this little flickering lantern, and the wind blows it away, turns it off, right? Moves it over, right? The winds of our passions, right? And that's exactly what it is. Very difficult, right? To keep the focus on with the flickering light, right? Or the dissonant instruments like Emmanuel brings to us, right? That's the same idea. Okay? Oh Lord, deliver us from the evil that we have accumulated. This is an interesting one too, because he's not saying deliver us from evil. That's it, right? The evil that's out there somewhere. Someone is evil against me. There's a little change in the sentence, like deliver us from the evil that we have accumulated, right? So help us deal with consequences. Remember, the book is about consequences. So consequences of our own acts, right? That's what you're saying. In your mercy, that's talking to Jesus, open to us the redemptive pathway that can make us worthy of your divine compassion. We need to be worthy of it, right? Reveal to us your sovereign and merciful will, so that in doing it, we may someday reach the glory of true resurrection. Far from the physical body for the time being, do not, and because they're obviously discarnate spirits, right? For the time being, do not let us become like corpses in selfishness and discord. And corpses And the imagery here, and that's the same imagery, for example, that Emmanuel uses too. The corpses are this dead matter, right? Imagine this. Something inert that's not alive, does not respond, does not react, right? So corpses that are solidified, he uses the same word here, petrification, right? Which is solidified and is a representative of like a mass of selfishness, right? That's what you're saying. Magnanimously send us the messengers of your infinite goodness so that we may abandon the sepulchre of our old illusions, right? So we don't have more the old illusions. So dear friends, that's the prayer that we're studying tonight. But now, in the last few minutes, what I want to do is I want to talk about the Matilde, because she's going to now she's going to present herself, right, during that moment now in the book. And that manifestation of Matilde is actually a quintessential summary of a lot of the ideas that we just discussed here. Okay, so let's go, and I'll do the exercise in a minute. Okay, we'll leave it to the end. Okay, so right after the prayer, that's the description that's going to happen of the scene. So Darlise is describing the scene, right? So we saw a bright, soft light radiated from the chest of Ruby, and the hands like waves. The light looked like highly tenuous starlight, so very bright, like starlight, because the radiations hovered in the air as if forming singular pauses and movements. In a few moments, that luminance mass, right, with contours, gave us an idea of invisible manipulators. So it's like someone is manipulating that energy and infusing it with human life. It's like that energy is transforming into a person. That's what he's describing. A few minutes later, the venerable and beautiful Matilde appeared before us. She actually manifests herself, right? The materialization of such sublimated spirit right there had a profound effect on us. It was quite similar to what occurs in the physical sphere. So similar to what happens in the physical world right here, that you have materialization of spirits, the same process can happen with a much more subtle type of materialization that can occur in the spiritual world. And that's when Matilde comes in to talk to us. All right? And this is what she's going to say. Life that we know is a continuous perfecting process, right? Nice summary there. We are in a continuous pathway of perfection. Okay? Desire to go back is not enough. You must direct that desire towards the infinite good, right? So that desire is for the perfection. Okay? So that is good, because some individuals, and I heard that many, many times, now that we know that we reincarnate, Spirit says there's a little thing that can happen too, right? Sometimes we hear this, oh, not this incarnate. I'm not going to do this incarnate. I'm going to do it next time, because I know I can come back again. So, I can just relax and take my time. Okay? Be careful, right? That is another little check there of a missed opportunity, right? Why not? Okay. Oh, I'm not gonna stop doing this now because this is listen, I'm gonna stop, I don't know, smoking, but I'm not gonna stop anything else because I've already did one, so I'm gonna do it next incarnation. Okay. So all those decisions have consequences, and that's what the book Liberation brings to us. Right? And that's what Matilde is saying to us. Hey, watch out. Be nice, right? So we are like high-powered magnets. You know what's a magnet, right? Brings these similar energies together, magnetic energies together, right? Or centers of intelligent life that attract forces that harmonize with our own. So you look inside of you and your thoughts, and you know exactly what you're harmonizing with, what you're attracting, your little magnet, right? Which make up our spiritual domicile, or where we live. Okay? Now, Matilde is going to ask a few questions here to the group at that time. And I'm going to pose the same questions to all of us. So we can try to answer each one of these questions, and then we understand the prayer, right? We understand what we're going to ask for and what we need to do to receive what we're asking for, and where are we in this process of evolution. Okay, are you ready for that? Okay, let's do this. Okay, because this happened right after the prayer. Do you remember this? Like we just finished the prayer now, and then Matilde comes in and talks to us. Okay, so this is the first question. What good deeds have you done to merit new resources from heaven? Every time I read this chapter, I think about it's like us going like to a boss, and saying, we're working on this big company and the CEO there, and you have a new project you're all excited about, right? And then the first thing that they're going to ask is like, why you're asking us for more resources and people and time and this and another team to work for you. So what have you done actually, with the previous project that you just told us, like, you're doing great. Like, I'm going to finish this. This will be like the best project ever. And you didn't finish it, right? Actually, you're delaying it. You're not working well. Okay. So that's exactly what's happening here. So what good deeds have you done to merit new resources from heaven? First question. Second question. Who can you count on so as to come out victorious in your upcoming experiences? So who can you count on? And what's the point? I'm just thinking about the point. Do you think, next question, do you think a farmer can harvest a crop without having planted the seed? Okay. This is an assessment of a prayer. Think about this. Like when we're praying, like every time we're asking stuff randomly, sometimes, think about, do you think a farmer can actually harvest without planting the seed? Okay. Next question. Have you stored up enough serenity and understanding in your hearts so that you do not poison yourselves tomorrow on the physical plane under the subtle bombardment of rays of anger, envy, and jealousy? So are you prepared, right? Do you stock up enough serenity inside of you to be prepared to face the consequences of this new experience, right? Are you convinced, next question, that no one can be warmed by the divine sun without first having opened their hearts to the currents of life eternal? I feel like my guardian angel is like saying this word to me, like every single day, saying this sentence. Are you convinced that no one can be warmed by the divine sun without first having opened their hearts to the currents of life eternal? Have we opened our hearts? That is the question. Right? Have we opened our hearts to God? Okay. Next question. Don't you know that you must also work to merit the blessing of a corporeal temple? Right? So for the blessings we have now and the blessings that the discarnate spirits are asking for, right? Don't you know that you must work to merit it? We have to work hard for this, right? Next question. Which friends have you helped so that you may ask for the love and sacrifice of fatherhood and motherhood on their behalf? So what have you done to others, right? Who have you asked? Okay? Have you helped, right? So by posing those questions, Matilde, in an incredibly bright way, is making us reflect about ourselves, right? And understanding, the challenges, the consequences. What are we asking? Do we really know what we're asking when we pray? Right? So think about this. This is very important. Okay? And then she's going to ask a specific question from one of the participants, right? So from someone who killed another person in the previous life and is going through the challenges of dealing with the consequences of the actions, okay? So the individual is going to ask, how can we start reparation? So how can I actually make things right, right? And she's going to say, Matilde is going to say, There are other brothers and sisters nearby who are bearing the burden of the same guilt. They wander around, wretched, unspeakable nightmares and affliction. Open your heart to them. Start by helping them Start by helping them see the regenerative pathway and nourish them with hopes and new ideas, attracting them to the endeavor of sublimation through their own efforts by constantly practicing the good. So the answer to us is, if we're going through hard times, it doesn't matter what, right? If our thoughts, we're having a difficult time focusing our thoughts into what we need to do, what to do next. The suffering, the pain, the discomfort, they're all hanging around, right? The remorse from the mistakes that we've done in the past are solidifying inside ourselves. That's just learned here. And we can't get rid of them. We can't really learn with them and transform them, right? Are those problems that we're facing. So what do we need to do? Help others that are surrounding us that are going through the same problems, right? It's very clear. It's point clear into the same. Look around you. Do you think you're the only one that's going through a difficult time? Do you think your suffering is worse or difficult or harder than another person, right? Can't you still, in times of difficulty, still help someone in need? She's not saying that that's easy, but she's saying that that is the pathway, right? And for example, I've been through, like all of us, we've been through a lot of challenges. And I remember one of the challenges that I had a couple of years ago with the health of my son, going through a very difficult time. And I remember, and this is something that is very emotional to me, but I remember many days, I was a wreck because I thought, I was like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. Why is this happening to me? Typical, right? And it's not because I study hundreds of books in Spiritism that that doesn't happen with me, right? It happens to all of us, right? And I remember saying, well, I'm a wreck. So this is a disaster. Why is this happening to me? And going through that little cyclic moments of, this same thing. The idea comes and goes and fixes in your mind. And all of a sudden, like, I'm the victim. This is, like, I don't know why God is doing this to me kind of thing, right? So we go through that. We kind of deviate to that path sometimes. Not all the time, but there are moments where, we kind of, go there. And I remember one day sitting in my office in my work, and I could hear my guardian angel talking to me. He's like, stop it, look at you, really, like, look at you. What's happening? What are you doing? Right? Go to the hospital. Go to the hospital. Which actually the hospital is the hospital for sick kids, which just literally across the street from where I work. So go to the hospital now. Just sit down there for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And then you come back to the office. So I did. Stepped out of my office, went to sick kids. The very first patient that I see walk into the hospital was in such a particular type of challenge that I don't need to describe. That brought tears to my eyes. I was like, thank you, God. That's the first thing I said. Thank you, God, for giving me a challenge or situation that I can not only conquer, I can do it, but also I can help others. And that's exactly what I did. So from that day on, that was the very beginning of his treatment. I actually started helping other parents that are going through the same challenge, and I still do. And I still, fundraise, and I raise awareness for epilepsy and things. So I still working on it, but it's not as simple as sometimes we say things like, oh, we gotta do this, this is in the book, look at this, like, see, Andrea Louise is saying this here. No, like, Liberation is a good book because it gives us not only, like, oh, this is what happens, but also the challenges, the difficulties in thinking about these problems, right? How do we implement? What are the consequences, right? Make us think, right? And that's, for me, that's why this book is so important. And that's why I absolutely think that this passage, the entire communication by Matthew in this chapter, you have really to look at it because it's just beautiful, right? And she continues on in the very list, the tiny little end of the chapter. Now she's going to say, you can begin the readjustment of your energies, or our energies, by devoting yourself in the nearby circles of uplifting other sufferers of goodwill. So look around you. That's exactly what happened with me, right? To look around you. And I remember every time I went to the hospital since then, I always thanked. It doesn't matter how hard it was. I always think, I said, God, thank you. Thank you because I know I can do this. I have the resources of doing it because I know God's not going to do something to us that we cannot, that we're not going to be allowed to go through a trial that we cannot complete, right? We cannot. So every trial, every expiation that we receive, first of all, it's perfectly just. It's part of the law. I obviously have to repair something. I have to correct something. I have the resources to accomplish it, right? I have people around me, incarnate and discarnate, supporting us all the time, right? And if I set my mind right, I'll not only accomplish it, I'll learn from it and I'll move forward, right? So let us thank God for that, right? For these opportunities, right? Let's thank God for every little one of the challenges that we have, because those are the ones that are making us move forward faster. Not that we need them, but they make us act. Okay, dear friends. So this is what we had to talk about today. Okay, so that's the chapter 18. We're now going to move into another book tomorrow with our friend Carol, which is following us here. Carol, thank you very much. I always enjoy learning from you here also, and from our friend Vanessa that will be back soon, and we'll continue this journey of learning through the Illuminated Prayers. All right, my friends. So may God bless all of you guys. Let us keep in our hearts the motivation to keep moving forward, right? To learn, to put in practice what we're discussing today, and stop this nonsensical thoughts that we have sometimes that, because we're studying, we should already be here, right? We should be experts and perfect, and we will not allow ourselves to make mistakes and learn from them. Let's try to get rid of that, right? Let's think now. Let's take what we have, learn from it, and move a step at a time, right? In every single step, right? Don't set goals that you cannot accomplish. Don't expect more than you can do right now. That's very important, right? Thank you very much, Sunshine. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, everyone, John, everyone that's connected with us, okay? May God bless all of you, all of us, okay? And we'll be with you in a couple of nights, all right? Thank you very much. Have a good night.